Hi, I'm Rebecca Marie, and here's how COVID saved my life. Back in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I went for a COVID test because at the time it needed to be approved by a doctor, and I was working in healthcare as a music therapist. So I went and got a COVID test, and the doctor who approved it said that she was taking new patients and I needed a general checkup. So I went to see her, and within the first few minutes of the appointment, she said, "Has anybody ever told you about your thyroid?" And I was like, my Nana pointed it out. She was a nurse, but all my levels were normal. She said, "Walk with me." And she walked me over to the mirror. She said, "Look at your throat and swallow." And at the time, it looked like a bullfrog. I had not noticed how big my throat was. So she sent me for an ultrasound the same day, and I remember sitting in that chair being like, this could be life-changing. And fast forward to the next part, the results of the ultrasound 2 weeks later, because everything takes 2 weeks in the medical field, they did find a big nodule on my thyroid. So the next step is biopsy. And turns out my mom is an audiologist and works at an ENT office. So I actually had the biopsy done in her office with a doctor I was familiar with. That didn't prevent me from passing out and from them having to break out the smelling salts after having a needle in my neck, but it was nice to be with my mom, and she held my hand through that. And interestingly enough, she was the one who told me the results, and it was 50% chance of cancer with a Dicer 1 mutation. So at this point, I have my thyroid levels checked. My antibodies are through the roof, which means diagnosis of autoimmune disorder Hashimoto's. And with all this information, the next step is to see an endocrinologist. So that's when I meet Dr. Ellen Golding, recommended by the incredible primary care who first noticed it, Dr. Ruth Katignas. And I had another ultrasound done with Dr. Golding, and he recommended surgery. He said, "You're already going to be on thyroid meds because of the autoimmune disorder. There's 50% chance of cancer. So why don't we get this thing out just to be safe?" So I decided to go through with it. I still had to wait for the surgery. So come back next week and I'll tell you what I did in the waiting.